Hey everyone, before we dive into this incredible story, we want to know, what city in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Let's get started. The neon lights of Deep Ellum flickered against the autumn sky, casting a kaleidoscope of colors over the bustling streets of Dallas, Texas. The air carried the smoky aroma of barbecue from Pecan Lodge, mixed with the faint strum of a blues guitar drifting from a nearby bar. It was a Thursday evening, and the neighborhood pulsed with life. Artists painting murals, couples laughing over craft beers, and street vendors hawking tacos and handmade jewelry. Amid this vibrant chaos, Lily Carter pedaled her old bicycle, its wicker basket overflowing with sunflowers, roses, and daisies. At 27, Lily was a fixture in Deep Ellum, her bright smile and colorful bouquets as much a part of the scene as the graffiti-covered walls. Her denim jacket faded from years of wear flapped in the cool October breeze. Her boots, scuffed and patched, thudded softly against the pedals. Lily knew every corner of this neighborhood, every dive bar, every food truck, every mural that changed with the seasons. She'd grown up in Dallas, mostly in the quieter, working-class area of Oak Cliff, but Deep Ellum was her playground, her marketplace, her stage. Selling flowers wasn't just a job. It was her way of bringing a little beauty to a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. Her mother, who'd passed away when Lily was 15, used to say, "Flowers don't fix everything, but they sure make the heart smile." Lily lived by those words, even on nights like this when her back ached and her basket was nearly empty after a long day. Tonight, though, something felt different. The air was sharper, the streets quieter than usual past the main strip. Lily pedaled down a side alley behind Pecan Lodge, a shortcut she often took to avoid the late-night crowds. The alley was narrow, lined with overflowing dumpsters and scattered with empty beer cans that glinted under a flickering street lamp. She was humming a tune, some old country song her mom used to love, when her bike wobbled, nearly tipping over. She slammed on the brakes, her heart jumping to her throat. There, slumped against a rusty pole next to a dumpster, was a man. He was out cold, his head tilted at an awkward angle, one arm sprawled across a pile of soggy cardboard. His clothes told a story that didn't match the scene. A tailored navy blazer, torn at the shoulder, and a crisp white shirt, now stained with dirt and something darker, blood. A sleek silver watch gleamed on his wrist, catching the dim light. His face, smudged with grime, was striking even in its stillness. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, dark hair matted with sweat and blood from a gash on his forehead. Lily's breath caught. "Holy crap," she whispered, dropping her bike to the ground with a clatter. For a moment she froze. Deep Ellum could be rough after dark. Drunk tourists, petty thieves, the occasional fight spilling out from a bar. She'd seen plenty of people passed out on these streets, usually from too much whiskey or worse. But this guy, he didn't belong here. The suit, the watch, the polished shoes, scuffed but expensive. It all screamed money, the kind of money that didn't end up in alleys next to trash. Lily's first instinct was to keep going. Helping strangers in dark alleys wasn't exactly in her survival guide. She'd learned to keep her head down, to focus on her flowers and her rent, to avoid trouble. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the blood trickling down his temple, mixing with the drizzle that had started to fall. Maybe it was the way his chest rose and fell, uneven but alive, or the faint groan that escaped his lips as a gust of wind swept through the alley. Or maybe it was her mother's voice echoing in her mind. "Kindness costs nothing, Lily, but can change everything." Her heart pounded as she stepped closer, her boots crunching on gravel. "Hey, mister," she called, her voice sharper than she intended. "You alive?" No response. She crouched beside him, the smell of expensive cologne mixing oddly with the stench of garbage and rain. Up close, she could see the details. The fine stitching on his blazer, the monogrammed cufflinks, the faint stubble on his jaw. He wasn't much older than her, maybe early 30s, but he looked like he'd been through hell. The gash on his forehead was fresh, the blood still wet, and his hands were scraped like he'd tried to fight something or someone off. "Oh man, what happened to you?" Lily muttered, brushing a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. She glanced around. The alley was empty, the distant hum of Deep Ellum's nightlife barely audible. No one was coming to help this guy. She could call 911, but what would she say? Found a rich dude passed out by a dumpster? The cops would probably take forever, and by then he'd be soaked and freezing. The drizzle was turning into a steady rain, and his body was starting to shiver. Lily bit her lip, torn. What if he was dangerous? What if this was a setup? She'd heard stories of scams like this. People pretending to be hurt to lure someone in. But then she saw his hand twitch, his fingers curling slightly, and her resolve hardened. Okay, don't die on me," she said half to herself. She shook his shoulder gently, then with more force. "Hey, wake up." A low groan was all she got, his head lolling to the side. His lips moved, mumbling something incoherent. Maybe a name, maybe a plea. Lily's mind raced. She couldn't leave him here. Not like this. Not when he was bleeding and helpless. She stood, her hands on her hips, and made a decision that felt equal parts reckless and right. Getting him to her place was no small feat. Lily wasn't weak. She'd spent years hauling flower baskets and pedaling through Dallas traffic, but this guy was solid, probably 6 feet tall and heavier than he looked. She maneuvered her bike closer, propping it against the pole. With a grunt, she hooked her arms under his shoulders and dragged him toward the bike's rear basket, which she'd rigged to carry extra flowers. "You owe me big time, mister," she huffed, her breath fogging in the chilly air. His weight made her stumble, and she nearly dropped him when his watch caught on her jacket. After what felt like an eternity, she got him slumped into the basket, his long legs dangling awkwardly over the side, his head resting against a bundle of wilting daisies. The ride to Oak Cliff was slow and grueling. The rain soaked through her jacket, plastering her hair to her face. The bike wobbled under the extra weight, and every bump in the road drew a faint groan from the man. Lily's small house was a few miles away, a one-bedroom rental with peeling paint and a leaky roof. But it was hers. She'd saved for years to move out of her aunt's crowded apartment, and though the place wasn't much, it was home. As she pedaled past gas stations and taquerias, her mind churned with questions. Who was this guy? Why was he in that alley? And what the hell was she going to do with him once he woke up? By the time she reached her street, her arms were screaming, and her legs felt like jelly. She pulled into the gravel driveway, the bike skidding slightly. The house was dark, the porch light flickering as always. With a final heave, she got the man inside, dragging him across the threshold and onto her worn-out couch. The living room smelled faintly of lavender from her flower-drying experiments, mixed with the musty scent of old wood. She covered him with a quilt her mother had made, its patches faded but soft. Panting, she lit a small lamp and studied him. In the warm light, he looked less like a mystery and more like a person, vulnerable, lost. The gash on his forehead had stopped bleeding, but his face was pale, his breathing shallow. Lily grabbed a damp cloth and cleaned the wound, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. As she wiped away the dirt, she noticed details. His nails were manicured, his teeth straight and white, his skin smooth except for the bruises. This wasn't a guy who lived on the streets. She unbuttoned his torn shirt to check for more injuries and froze. The tattoo on his chest, a gear with the words "Build the Future," was intricate, professional, the kind that cost serious money. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the patter of rain outside. Lily sank to the floor beside the couch, her knees pulled to her chest. She should have called the police or at least a hospital, but something held her back. Maybe it was the way he'd mumbled in his sleep, like he was pleading for help. Maybe it was her own stubborn heart, always too quick to care. Whatever it was, she wasn't letting him go just yet. She'd keep him safe, at least until morning. Then she'd figure out what to do. As the night deepened, Lily stayed awake, watching his chest rise and fall. The rain drummed on the roof, and the neon glow of Deep Ellum felt a world away. For now, it was just her, this stranger and a story that was only beginning. Lily Carter sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor of her small oak cliff home, the faint glow of a single lamp casting shadows across the room. The man she'd found in the Deep Ellum alley lay sprawled on her couch, his chest rising and falling, under the patchwork quilt her mother had sewn years ago. The rain outside had softened to a drizzle, but the air inside felt heavy with uncertainty. Lily's eyes darted between the stranger's bruised face and the window, where the occasional car headlight flickered past. Her heart hadn't stopped, racing since she'd spotted him by the dumpster. And now, with him here in her living room, the weight of her decision pressed down on her. She wasn't naive. Dallas wasn't a fairy tale. And Deep Ellum, for all its charm, had its dark corners. She'd seen enough to know that helping a stranger could backfire. Just last year, her friend Rosa, who ran a taco stand, had given a drunk guy a ride home, only to have her wallet stolen. Lily's life wasn't easy. Scraping by on flower sales, paying rent on a house that creaked in every storm, saving every penny for a dream she barely dared to name. Getting involved with some rich guy who'd ended up in an alley was a risk she didn't need. Yet here she was, with a bloodied stranger on her couch, his fancy watch ticking softly in the quiet. Lily stood, brushing her hands on her jeans, and paced the small room. The floorboards groaned under her boots, and the scent of lavender from her drying flowers hung in the air. She glanced at the man again. His face, even battered, was striking. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, dark hair curling slightly at the ends. The gash on his forehead looked less angry now that she'd cleaned it, but the bruises on his knuckles and the tear in his blazer suggested a fight, or worse. She'd checked his pockets while he was out. No wallet, no phone, just a crumpled business card with the logo of something called Harrington Tech and a tagline, "Build the Future." It meant nothing to her, but it confirmed what she'd suspected. This guy was somebody, or at least he had been before he landed in that alley. "Why me?" she muttered, running a hand through her dark hair. She could have walked away, called the cops, let them deal with it. But the memory of her mother's voice kept creeping in. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. Her mom had been the same way, always giving, always seeing the good in people, even when it cost her. Lily had inherited that stubborn streak, for better or worse. She sighed, grabbing a clean cloth from the kitchen and a bowl of warm water. If she was going to do this, she'd do it right. Kneeling beside the couch, she dabbed at the dried blood on his face, careful not to press too hard. His skin was warm, his breathing steadier now, but he didn't stir. Up close, she noticed more details. The faint lines around his eyes, like he carried stress even in sleep. The expensive cologne clinging to his torn shirt, a sharp contrast to the alley's stench. She unbuttoned his shirt further to check for other injuries, revealing the tattoo she'd glimpsed earlier. A gear with the words, "Build the Future," inked above his heart. It wasn't just the tattoo's craftsmanship that struck her. It was the kind of thing you'd see on someone with money, someone who thought they could shape the world. "What kind of trouble did you get into?" she whispered, shaking her head. The house was quiet except for the drip of the leaky faucet in the kitchen and the occasional creak of the walls. Lily's eyes flicked to the door, half expecting someone to barge in looking for this guy. What if he was running from something? What if whoever did this to him came after her? She pushed the thought away. She dealt with worse. Eviction notices, pushy customers. The time a guy tried to grab her basket of flowers and run. She wasn't helpless. Still, she double-checked the lock on the door and shoved a chair under the knob for good measure. Back at the couch, she sat on the floor, her back against the wall, and studied him. He looked out of place in her world, with its thrift store furniture and cracked windows. Her home was small, barely 600 square feet, with a sagging roof and a heater that only worked half the time. But it was hers, paid for with every bouquet she sold every early morning at the flower market. Bringing a stranger here felt like inviting chaos into her carefully built life. Yet as she watched him breathe, she couldn't shake the feeling that he needed her. Not just anyone. Her. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Lily's eyelids grew heavy, but she fought to stay awake. What if he woke up confused or, worse, angry? She grabbed her phone, ready to dial 911 if things went south, but the battery was at 5%. Typical. She set it down and pulled the quilt higher over his shoulders. His face twitched and he mumbled something, maybe a name, maybe a curse. "No, don't!" His voice was hoarse, barely audible. Lily leaned closer, her heart skipping. "Hey, you're okay," she said softly. Not sure if he could hear. You're safe." Safe. The word felt strange in her mouth. Was he safe here? Was she? Lily had grown up in Oak Cliff, raised by her aunt after her mom died. She'd learned early that safety was something you built, not something you found. Her aunt used to say, "You make your own luck, Lily, and you make your own home." That's why she'd stayed in Dallas, why she'd chosen flowers over a soul-crushing office job. Flowers were honest. They bloomed. They withered. They didn't pretend to be something they weren't. This guy, though, he was a mystery, and mysteries were dangerous. She stood again, needing to move, and went to the kitchen. The linoleum floor was cold under her bare feet as she filled a kettle with water. Coffee. She needed coffee to stay awake, to think straight. As the kettle hummed, she glanced back at the couch. His hand had slipped out from under the quilt, the silver watch catching the light. It wasn't just expensive. It was the kind of thing you saw in glossy ads, the kind that cost more than her rent for a year. Whoever he was, he didn't belong in an alley, and he sure didn't belong in her life. So why had she brought him here? The kettle whistled, snapping her out of her thoughts. She poured the coffee into a chipped mug, the steam warming her face. Her mom's quilt, the one covering the stranger, had been a gift for her 10th birthday. Every patch told a story. Floral fabric from a dress her mom wore, denim from her dad's old jacket, cotton from a scarf they'd found at a flea market. It was the only thing Lily had left of her. Bringing this guy here, wrapping him in that quilt, felt like a betrayal of that memory. But leaving him in the rain, bleeding and alone, would have been worse. She sipped her coffee, the bitter taste grounding her. The rain had stopped, and the silence was almost oppressive. She checked her phone again, 3% battery now. No messages, no missed calls. Her aunt would have told her to call for help, to stay out of trouble. But her aunt wasn't here, and Lily had learned to trust her gut. Right now, her gut was telling her this man wasn't just some drunk who'd wandered too far from the bars. The bruises, the torn clothes, the mumbled words, they painted a picture of something bigger, something she wasn't sure she wanted to understand. She sat back down beside the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. The lamp flickered, casting long shadows across his face. He looked younger in sleep, less like a man who belonged in boardrooms and more like someone who'd gotten lost. Lily knew that feeling, being lost. She'd felt it when her mom died, when she moved to Oak Cliff, when she realized the world. Didn't care about a girl selling flowers. Maybe that's why she couldn't walk away. She saw something of herself in him, even if she couldn't explain it. The hours dragged on. Lily's coffee grew cold, and her eyes burned with exhaustion. She thought about waking him, demanding answers, but he looked so fragile, so unlike the polished man his clothes suggested. Instead, she grabbed a notebook from the table, a battered, spiral thing where she sketched flower arrangements, and started jotting down her thoughts. Who is he? Why was he in that alley? What if he's running from something? The questions piled up, each one heavier than the last. As dawn broke, soft, light seeped through the curtains, painting the room in hues of gold and gray. The man stirred, a low groan escaping his lips. Lily's heart jumped and she leaned forward, clutching the notebook. His eyes fluttered open, blue and disoriented, searching the room like he was waking from a nightmare. Where am I?" he rasped, his voice rough with pain. Lily swallowed hard, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "You're in my house. I found you in an alley in Deep Ellum last night. You were hurt." She paused, studying his face for any sign of recognition. "Do you know who you are?" He blinked, his hand going to his forehead. wincing as his fingers brushed the gash. I don't know, he said, his voice breaking. I don't remember anything. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Lily Carter's small Oak Cliff home, casting a soft golden glow across the worn hardwood floor. The room smelled faintly of lavender and coffee, the remnants of Lily's sleepless night lingering in the air. On the couch, the stranger she'd rescued from a Deep Ellum alley stirred, his bruised face twitching as he fought his way back to consciousness. Lily sat on the floor beside him, her notebook still clutched in her hands, filled with scribbled questions she wasn't sure she'd ever get answers to. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her denim jacket lay crumpled nearby, damp from the rain-soaked ride home. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with the weight of what she'd done, bringing a stranger, possibly dangerous, into her home. The man groaned, a low, pained sound that made Lily's heart skip. She leaned forward, setting the notebook aside, her eyes fixed on him. His hand moved to his forehead, fingers brushing the bandaged gash she'd cleaned hours earlier. His eyes fluttered open, blue, piercing, and utterly lost. They darted around the room, taking in the peeling paint, the patchwork quilt draped over him, the small table cluttered with dried flowers and a chipped coffee mug. Where am I?" he rasped, his voice rough like he'd swallowed gravel. He tried to sit up, winced, and sank back against the couch, clutching his head. "You're in my house," Lily said, her tone calm but firm, masking the nervous flutter in her chest. "I found you last night in an alley in Deep Ellum. You were out cold, bleeding. I couldn't just leave you there." She paused, studying his face for any sign of recognition. His features were sharp, almost too perfect despite the bruises. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, dark hair curling slightly at the ends. He looked like someone who belonged in a downtown penthouse, not slumped next to a dumpster. "Do you remember anything? Your name? What happened?" He blinked, his brow furrowing as he pressed his fingers to his temples, like he could force the memories out. I don't know," he said, his voice breaking with frustration. "It's all blank, like a fog." His eyes met hers, wide with panic. "I don't even know who I am." The raw vulnerability in his voice hit Lily hard. She'd expected anger, maybe suspicion, but not this. A man stripped of everything, even his own identity. Okay, she said, raising her hands to calm him. "You're safe here. Let's take it slow." She stood, brushing her jeans, and grabbed the coffee mug from the table. "I'm gonna make you some coffee. You look like you need it." She forced a small smile, hoping to ease the tension. He nodded weakly, his gaze still darting around the room as if searching for something familiar in the unfamiliar. In the kitchen, Lily filled the kettle, her hands trembling slightly. She dealt with tough situations before, haggling with flour suppliers, dodging creeps in Deep Ellum, keeping her tiny business afloat. But this was different. This guy wasn't just a customer or a passerby. He was a mystery, and she'd invited him into her life. The kettle hummed, and she glanced back at the couch. He was staring at the ceiling, his hands clenched, his breathing uneven. She wondered what kind of life he'd come from. The tattoo on his chest, "Build the Future," and the business card she'd found in his pocket suggested money, power, maybe trouble. But right now he was just a man, scared and lost. She returned with 2 mugs of coffee, the steam curling in the cool morning air. "Here," she said, handing him one. "It's not fancy, but it's strong." He took it with shaky hands, his fingers brushing hers briefly. The contact sent a small jolt through her, unexpected and unsettling. She sat on the floor again, cross-legged, keeping a safe distance. "I'm Lily, by the way. Lily Carter." He sipped the coffee, wincing as the hot liquid touched his lips. "Lily," he repeated, testing the word. "That's nice." His voice was softer now, less panicked. He looked at her, his blue eyes searching her face. "I don't have a name to give you. I can't remember anything." He set the mug down, his hands trembling. "It's like my head's empty, just flashes. Lights, maybe a car, nothing makes sense." Lily nodded, her heart aching for him. She knew what it was like to feel unmoored, After her mom died, she'd spent years drifting, trying to find her place in a world that didn't seem to want her. "Okay," she said gently. "Until you remember, we need to call you something. Can't just keep saying, 'Hey, you.'" She managed a small grin, hoping to lighten the mood. "Any ideas?" He frowned, staring into his coffee like it held answers. I don't know." His voice cracked, and he looked away, embarrassed. Lily's mind flashed to a book her mom used to read to her, a story about a brave sailor named Vincent who faced storms and came out stronger. It seemed fitting for a man who'd survived whatever had left him in that alley. "How about Vince?" she suggested. "It's strong, simple, suits you." He tilted his head, considering it. "Vince," he said slowly, as if tasting the name. A faint smile tugged at his lips, the first she'd seen, and it transformed his face, making him look younger, less broken. "Yeah, I like it. Vince it is." He met her eyes, and for a moment the room felt smaller, the air warmer. "Thank you, Lily, for this." He gestured vaguely at the room, the quilt, the coffee. "Don't thank me yet," she said, half joking. "You're still on my couch, taking up space." But her smile betrayed her, and he chuckled, a low, rough sound that made her stomach flip. She cleared her throat, looking away. "You're hurt, though. We should get you to a doctor. That cut on your head looks bad." Vince touched the bandage, wincing. "I don't know if I can... I don't have ID, money, anything." His voice was laced with frustration, and he clenched his fists. "I don't even know if I have insurance or... God, this is a mess." Lily leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "Hey, one step at a time. I know a clinic nearby in Oak Cliff. They don't ask too many questions. We can figure out the rest later." She hesitated, then added, "You can stay here until you're on your feet. If you want." His eyes widened, surprise flickering across his face. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me. I could be, I don't know, a criminal or something." Lily laughed, a sharp, genuine sound. "A criminal? In that fancy blazer? Nah, you're too pretty for that." The words slipped out before she could stop them, and she felt her cheeks heat up. Vince's smile returned, wider this time, and she quickly looked away, focusing on her coffee. "Seriously, though," she continued, "you were hurt. I couldn't leave you out there. My mom always said kindness is like planting a seed. It grows if you give it a chance." He nodded, his expression softening. "Your mom sounds like a wise woman." "She was," Lily said quietly, her throat tightening. She didn't talk about her mom much, not with her aunt, not with her friends at the flower market. But something about Vince, or maybe the way he looked at her like he was really listening, made her want to share. "She died when I was a kid. Cancer. But she taught me to see the good in people even when it's hard." Vince's eyes held hers, steady and warm. "I'm sorry," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. "She'd be proud of you, for helping a total stranger like me." Lily shrugged, brushing off the compliment, but her heart warmed. "Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I'm not running a hotel." She stood, needing to break the moment before it got too heavy. "I'm gonna make some breakfast. You like eggs? It's about all I've got." "Eggs sound perfect," he said, his voice lighter now. He shifted on the couch, trying to sit up straighter, but grimaced, clutching his side. Lily's eyes narrowed. "You're hurt more than you're letting on," she said, crossing her arms. "Let me see." Before he could protest, she knelt beside him, gently lifting the quilt. His shirt was still unbuttoned from when she'd checked for injuries the night before, and she saw a bruise blooming across his ribs, purple and angry. "Jesus, Vince, what happened to you?" "I wish I knew," he said, his voice tight with pain. "It's all dark, like I'm trying to grab smoke." He looked at her, his eyes pleading. "You really think a doctor can help? With this?" He tapped his head. Lily sat back on her heels, considering. "Maybe. Or maybe it'll come back on its own. I've seen movies about amnesia. Usually a good knock to the head fixes it." She grinned, trying to lighten the mood, and he chuckled. Again, the sound easing the tension in the room. They ate breakfast together. Scrambled eggs and slightly burned toast on paper plates, sitting at her tiny kitchen table. The morning light streamed in, highlighting the cracks in the walls and the warmth in Vince's smile. He ate slowly, like he was savoring every bite, and Lily found herself watching him, curious. He didn't act like someone used to luxury, not now. He seemed grateful, present, like this simple meal was the best thing he'd ever tasted. As they talked, Lily shared bits of her life, growing up in Oak Cliff, selling flowers in Deep Ellum, the way the neighborhood came alive at night. Vince listened, asking questions, his curiosity genuine. He didn't have much to offer in return, just fragments of feelings, a sense of pressure, a vague memory of bright lights. But the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing anchoring him to the world, made her heart race in a way she wasn't ready to admit. By the time they finished eating, the sun was higher, and Lily felt a strange sense of ease. Vince was still a stranger, still a risk, but he didn't feel like one anymore. He was just Vince, lost, kind, and maybe a little broken, just like her. The late morning sun hung high over Oak Cliff, its warmth seeping through the cracked windows of Lily Carter's small home. The scent of coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the faint sweetness of dried flowers scattered across her kitchen table. Lily stood at the sink scrubbing the breakfast dishes, paper plates long discarded, replaced by her mismatched ceramic ones for Vince's sake. Across the room, Vince sat on the couch, his borrowed t-shirt slightly too tight across his shoulders, his bruised hands resting on his knees. The gash on his forehead was healing, but the shadows under his blue eyes spoke of a deeper wound. One that no bandage could fix. For 3 days, he'd stayed with Lily, and in that short time, their unlikely partnership had begun to feel like something more. Lily glanced over her shoulder, catching Vince staring out the window at the gravel driveway, where her bike leaned against a sagging fence. His expression was distant, like he was trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. She dried her hands on a dish towel and walked over, her boots thudding softly on the hardwood floor. "You okay?" she asked, leaning against the arm of the couch. "You've been quiet since breakfast." Vince blinked, snapping back to the present. "Yeah, just thinking." He offered a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Trying to remember something. Anything. It's like there's a wall in my head." He tapped his temple, frustration lacing his voice. "I keep getting these flashes, lights, voices, but they slip away before I can grab them." Lily nodded, her heart twisting. She'd seen that look before, on her mom's face during chemo when hope and fear battled for control. "Maybe you're trying too hard," she said gently. "Sometimes things come back when you stop chasing them." She hesitated, then added, "You don't have to figure it all out today. You're welcome to stay here until you do." His eyes met hers, searching. "You sure about that? I'm eating your food, taking up your couch. I don't even know how to pay you back." His voice was earnest, almost pleading, and it made Lily's chest tighten. She wasn't used to people caring about her burdens. Most just took what she offered and moved on. "You can start by helping me with the flowers," she said, half joking. "I've got a big day in Deep Ellum and my basket's not gonna fill itself." She grinned, hoping to lighten the mood. "Unless you're too fancy for manual labor." Vince chuckled, the sound low and warm. "Fancy? I don't even know if I am fancy. But I'm game." He stood, wincing slightly as he stretched, the bruise on his ribs still tender. "Show me the ropes, Lily Carter." And so began their new routine. Lily loaded her bike's wicker basket with fresh flowers, sunflowers, daisies, and vibrant zinnias she'd picked up at the Dallas Farmers Market. Vince, in a borrowed flannel shirt and jeans that barely fit, followed her to Deep Ellum, walking beside her as she pedaled slowly. The neighborhood was alive with its usual chaos. Street musicians strumming guitars, food trucks serving brisket tacos, and tourists snapping photos of the colorful murals. Lily set up her spot near a popular coffee shop, the Wild Detectives, spreading a blanket on the sidewalk and arranging her bouquets with practiced ease. Vince watched, fascinated as she worked. "How'd you get into this?" he asked, crouching beside her as she tied a ribbon around a bundle of roses. Selling flowers, I mean. Doesn't exactly scream big money. Lily laughed, her hands moving deftly. It's not about money, it's about, I don't know, making people smile. My mom used to grow flowers in our backyard. After she died, I started selling them to feel close to her. She shrugged, her voice softer now. Plus, I like being my own boss, no one telling me what to do. Vince nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's nice. Honest. He picked up a daisy, twirling it between his fingers. I don't know what I did before, but it didn't feel honest. I get this pressure in my chest when I think about it. Like I was always running. Lily glanced at him, her heart aching for the man who didn't even know his own story. Well, you're not running now, she said. You're here with me selling flowers, that's a start. He smiled, and for the first time it felt real, bright, unguarded, like a glimpse of who he might have been before the alley. Guess it is, he said, handing her the daisy. So how do I do this? Just yell, buy my flowers or what? She laughed, shoving him playfully. Not quite. Watch and learn. For the next few hours, Vince did just that. He watched Lily charm customers with her easy smile, haggling with a tourist over a bouquet, giving a free daisy to a little girl who tugged at her sleeve. He tried his hand at it too, awkwardly at first, but soon found a rhythm. His natural charisma, something he didn't even realize he had, drew people in. By noon, they'd sold half the basket and Vince was grinning like he'd won a prize. You're not bad at this, Lily said, counting the crumpled bills they'd earned. Maybe you were a salesman in your past life. Maybe, Vince. But his smile faded slightly. A flash hit him then. A blurry image of a glass-walled office, men in suits shouting numbers, a phone ringing endlessly. He shook his head, the memory slipping away like water through his fingers. Lily noticed the shift, her brow furrowing. You okay? She asked, touching his arm lightly. The contact grounded him, pulling him back to the present. Yeah, he lied, forcing a smile. Just nothing, let's keep going. The days blurred into a rhythm. Vince stayed at Lily's, sleeping on the couch, helping with the flowers, sharing meals of eggs, toast, and sometimes tacos from a nearby truck. Deep Ellum became their world, a vibrant, messy tapestry of music, art, and life. Vince learned the names of regular customers like Rosa, who ran a taco stand and always slipped them extra salsa, or Jamal, a street artist who traded sketches for bouquets. He marveled at the community, so different from the cold, fragmented flashes of his past. With Lily, he felt something he couldn't name, peace maybe, or purpose. At night, they'd sit on Lily's porch, the air thick with the scent of jasmine from a neighbor's yard. She'd tell him stories about her mom's garden, her first day selling flowers, the time she got stuck in a thunderstorm and nearly lost her bike. Vince listened, soaking up every word, wishing he had stories to share. But his mind was a blank slate, except for the flashes that came more often now. A beat, woman's voice sharp and demanding, a car speeding through rain, a sense of betrayal that made his chest tighten. He didn't tell Lily about them, not wanting to worry her, but they gnawed at him, a reminder that his past was out there, waiting. One evening, as they sat under the stars, Lily handed him a beer, the bottle cold against his palm. You ever think about what you'll do if you don't remember? She asked, her voice quiet. Like if this is just you now? Vince stared at the bottle, the question heavy. I don't know, he admitted. Part of me wants to stay like this, with you, here. It feels right. He looked at her, his eyes softening. But another part scared. What if I was someone bad? What if I hurt people? Lily shook her head, her dark hair catching the moonlight. I don't believe that. The way you talked to Rosa, the way you helped that kid. Find his mom yesterday? That's who you are, Vince. Whatever you were before, it doesn't have to define you. Her words hit him hard, stirring something deep. He wanted to believe her, to hold on to this life they were building, but the flashes were getting clearer, more insistent. That night, as he lay on the couch, he dreamed of a woman with cold eyes, her voice cutting like glass. "You can't run forever." He woke with a start, his heart racing, the name Harrington echoing in his mind. It meant something, but what? The afternoon sun hung low over Deep Ellum, casting long shadows across the vibrant streets where Lily Carter and Vince had spent the past week selling flowers. The air buzzed with the usual rhythm of the neighborhood, blues riffs spilling from open bar doors, the sizzle of food trucks, and the chatter of tourists snapping photos of murals. Lily knelt on her blanket near the wild detectives, arranging a bouquet of sunflowers, her hands moving with practiced ease. Beside her, Vince handed a daisy to a passing child, his borrowed flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows, his smile easy and genuine. To anyone watching, they looked like a team, their laughter blending with the hum of the crowd. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that would shatter the fragile peace they'd built. Lily had noticed a change in Vince over the past few days. His flashes of memory, blurry images of offices, cars, and a woman's sharp voice, came more frequently, leaving him quiet and withdrawn. He tried to hide it, joking with customers and helping her tie ribbons around bouquets. But she saw the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clenched when he thought she wasn't looking. She hadn't pushed him to talk, not yet. Part of her was afraid of what he might remember, of what it could mean for the life they were carving out together. For the first time in years, Lily felt something she hadn't dared to name. Hope, maybe, or the beginnings of something deeper. As she handed a bouquet to a customer, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it, focusing on counting change, but it buzzed again, insistent. "Hold on," she muttered, pulling it out. The screen showed a missed call from Rosa, her friend who ran a taco stand down the street, and a text. "Turn on the TV at the coffee shop. Now." Lily frowned, her stomach twisting. Rosa wasn't one for drama, so this had to be serious. She glanced at Vince, who was chatting with an older woman about zinnias, and hesitated. "Vince, I'm gonna step inside for a sec," she called. "Watch the blanket?" He nodded, flashing her a thumbs up, oblivious to the unease creeping up her spine. Lily jogged across the street to the Wild Detectives, its cozy interior packed with patrons sipping lattes and flipping through books. A small TV hung above the counter, usually tuned to sports or local news. Today, it was showing a breaking news segment, the ticker at the bottom reading, "Tech mogul missing after accident." Lily's breath caught as a photo flashed on the screen, a polished, smiling version of the man she knew as Vince. His dark hair neatly styled, his suit pristine. The anchor's voice cut through the chatter. "Vince Harrington, founder of Harrington Tech, has been missing for 10 days following a car accident in Dallas. Authorities are searching for leads." Lily's knees buckled and she gripped the counter for support. Vince Harrington, a billionaire. The name on the business card she'd found in his pocket. The tattoo on his chest, "Build the Future." It all clicked into place. He wasn't just some guy who'd gotten into a fight. He was one of the richest men in Texas, maybe the country. The anchor continued, mentioning Harrington Tech's groundbreaking AI software and Vince's reputation as a visionary. But Lily barely heard it. Her mind raced. Why was he in that alley? What kind of accident leaves a man with no memory, no ID? And why hadn't anyone come looking for him? She stumbled back outside, her heart pounding. Vince was still at the blanket, handing a bouquet to a customer, his laugh carrying across the street. He looked so normal. Not like a billionaire, not like someone who belonged in glass towers and boardrooms. She wanted to tell him, to show him the news, but something held her back. What if knowing changed him? What if he left her, went back to his world of wealth and power? The thought hit her harder than she expected, a sharp pang in her chest. Before she could decide what to do, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, its tinted windows glinting in the sunlight. The door opened, and a woman stepped out, her heels clicking on the pavement. She was tall, with sleek blonde hair and a tailored blazer that screamed money. Her eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto Vince, then flicked to Lily. The air shifted, like a storm cloud rolling in. Lily's instincts screamed danger. "Vince," the woman said, her voice smooth but sharp, cutting through the noise of the street. Vince looked up, confusion crossing his face. He didn't recognize her, but Lily saw the way his shoulders tensed, like his body remembered what his mind couldn't. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You've been hard to find." Lily stepped forward, placing herself between Vince and the woman. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "And how do you know him?" The woman's gaze slid to Lily, sizing her up like she was a bug under a microscope. "I'm Sarah," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Sarah Langley, Vince's, fiancée." The word hit Lily like a punch. Fiancée. Vince hadn't mentioned a fiancée, but then again, he didn't remember anything. Sarah's smile widened, sensing Lily's shock. "And you must be the Good Samaritan who's been looking after him." Lily's hands clenched, but she kept her composure. "He was hurt. I helped him. That's all." She glanced at Vince, who was standing now, his face pale, his eyes darting between them. "Vince, do you know her?" He shook his head, his voice low. "No, I don't remember." But there was a flicker in his eyes, a shadow of something. Fear, maybe, or recognition. Sarah stepped closer, ignoring Lily, her focus entirely on Vince. "You've been through a lot, darling," Sarah said, her voice softening, but it sounded rehearsed, like a performance. "You had an accident. You're confused. But I'm here. Now, let's get you home." She reached for his arm, but Vince pulled back, his jaw tightening. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty in his eyes. "Not until I know what's going on." He looked at Lily, his gaze steady. "Lily's been helping me. I trust her." Sarah's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "Trust her," she said, her tone laced with mockery. "You don't even know who you are, Vince. And this Florist? She's nobody. Probably saw a chance to cash in on a vulnerable man." Her eyes flicked to Lily, venomous. "Isn't that right, sweetheart?" Lily's blood boiled, but she held her ground. "I don't want his money," she snapped. "I found him bleeding in an alley. I could have left him there, but I didn't. Unlike you, I actually care what happens to him." Sarah laughed, a cold, cutting sound. "Oh, that's rich. You care. You don't even know him. He's Vince Harrington, CEO of Harrington Tech, worth billions. And you think you're what? His savior?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice, so only Lily could hear. "Stay out of this or you'll regret it." Lily didn't flinch, but her heart raced. She wanted to shove Sarah, to tell her to back off, but she knew better. This woman wasn't just a jealous ex. She was dangerous, the kind of person who played games with power. Lily glanced at Vince, who was watching them, his face a mix of confusion and protectiveness. "Lily," he said quietly, stepping closer to her. "You don't have to deal with this. I'll handle it." But Sarah wasn't done. That evening, as Lily and Vince packed up their flowers, the rumors started. Rosa texted Lily, saying she'd heard whispers at her taco stand. The florist. Girl was holding a rich guy hostage, manipulating him for money. By nightfall, a local gossip blog had picked up the story, complete with a grainy photo of Lily helping Vince in Deep Ellum. The headline screamed, "Flower Girl's scheme. Is she exploiting a missing billionaire?" Lily's stomach dropped as she read it on her phone, the words blurring with her anger and fear. "They're lying," she said, her voice shaking as she showed Vince the article. They were back in her Oak Cliff home, the TV off, the room lit only by a flickering lamp. "I didn't do this, I swear." Vince took the phone, his jaw tight as he scrolled through the post. "I know," he said, his voice steady. "This isn't you, it's her." He looked up, his eyes burning with something new, determination. "Sarah's trying to scare you off, but I'm not letting her win." Lily nodded, but the weight of the rumors pressed down on her. She'd worked hard to build her life, her reputation in Deep Ellum. Now, in one day, it was crumbling, all because she'd helped a stranger. She looked at Vince, his bruised hands, his borrowed clothes, and felt a surge of protectiveness. He was more than a billionario to her now. He was Vince, the man who laughed at her bad jokes, who tied clumsy ribbons around bouquets, who made her feel seen. She wasn't giving up on him, no matter what Sarah threw at her. The evening air in Deep Ellum carried the faint strum of a street musician's guitar, but for Lily Carter, the vibrant pulse of the neighborhood felt muted, overshadowed by the storm brewing in her life. She stood on her usual corner near the few wild detectives, her wicker basket half empty, the sunflowers and daisies wilting under the weight of a day that had spiraled out of control. Beside her, Vince Harrington, billionaire, amnesiac, and now the center of a vicious rumor mill, helped fold her blanket, his movements tense, his blue eyes scanning the street like he expected trouble. The gossip blog's lies about Lily exploiting a vulnerable man had spread like wildfire, and whispers followed them everywhere, from Rosa's taco stand to the baristas at the coffee shop. Lily's hands trembled as she tied a ribbon around a bouquet, her heart heavy with anger and fear. The Moe, black SUV that had brought Sarah Langley, Vince's supposed fiancée, was gone, but her presence lingered like a poison. Lily couldn't shake the memory of Sarah's cold smile, her venomous words, "Stay out of this or you'll regret it." She'd wanted to believe it was just jealousy, a scorned ex lashing out, but the rumors and the blog post felt too calculated, too deliberate. Vince, for his part, had been quiet since they'd returned to her Oak Cliff home the previous night, his face etched with guilt. He'd promised to stand by her, but Lily could see the toll it was taking. The way he flinched at every notification on her phone, the way his hands clenched when someone stared too long. As dusk settled over Deep Ellum, the streetlights flickered, casting a neon glow across the murals. Lily was packing up her flowers when a shadow fell across her blanket. She looked up, and there was Sarah, alone this time. Her blonde hair sleek under the lights, her tailored blazer replaced by a crisp black dress that screamed power. Her heels clicked on the pavement, and her eyes locked onto Lily with a predator's. "Focus?" Vince stiffened beside her, his hand brushing Lily's arm protectively. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low, edged with the defiance Lily hadn't heard before. Sarah ignored him, her gaze fixed on Lily. "We need to talk," she said, her tone smooth but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. "Alone." She tilted her head toward a quieter corner near a mural of a giant bluebird, away from the crowd. Lily's instinct screamed to say no, but the weight of the rumors, the sidelong glances from customers, the texts from friends asking if she was okay, pushed her forward. She needed to know what Sarah was playing at. "Lily, don't," Vince said, grabbing her wrist gently. His eyes were intense, pleading. "You don't have to do this." "I can handle her," Lily said, forcing a confidence she didn't fully feel. She squeezed his hand, then followed Sarah, her boots scuffing the pavement. The corner was dimly lit, the mural's colors faded in the shadows. Sarah leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "Let's make this quick," Sarah said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "I know you're not stupid, Lily. You see the headlines, the whispers. People think you're a gold digger and it's only going to get worse." She held out the envelope, its edges crisp and white. "There's $50,000 in here. Cash. Take it, leave Vince, and walk away. No questions, no consequences." Lily stared at the envelope, her blood boiling. $50,000. More than she'd earned in years selling flowers. It could fix her leaky roof, buy a new bike, maybe even let her start the small flower shop she'd dreamed of. But the price was her dignity, her connection with Vince, the life they were building. She crossed her arms, meeting Sarah's gaze. "You think I'm for sale?" she said, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. "I don't want your money. I helped Vince because he needed it, not because I saw dollar signs." Sarah's smirk didn't waver. "Oh, please. Spare me the saint act. You're a nobody scraping by in this dump of a neighborhood. Vince is out of your league, and deep down, you know it." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Take the money, or I'll make sure everyone in Dallas thinks you're a thief. I've got evidence. Bank transfers, emails, all. Pointing to you stealing from Harrington Tech. One call and you're done. Lily's heart raced, but she didn't back down. You're bluffing, she said, though a seed of doubt took root. Sarah was powerful, connected, the kind of person who could ruin lives with a snap of her fingers. Lily had nothing. No money, no influence, just her word and her pride. Vince trusts me. He'll see through your lies. Sarah laughed, a cold, cutting sound. Vince? He's a shell of himself. He doesn't even know who he is. But I do. And I'm not letting some street vendor ruin everything I've built. She tossed the envelope at Lily's feet, where it landed with a soft thud. Last chance, sweetheart. Lily kicked the envelope back, her boots scuffing the pavement. Go to hell, she said, turning to walk away. Her hands shook, but her resolve held firm. She wasn't running, not from Sarah, not from this fight. Back at the blanket, Vince was waiting, his face pale with worry. What did she say? He asked, his voice urgent. Lily hesitated, not wanting to burden him, but his eyes demanded the truth. She offered me money to leave you, Lily said, her voice low. Said she'd frame me for stealing if I didn't. She looked at him, searching for doubt, but found only anger. That's not happening, Vince said, his jaw tight. I don't know what her game is, but we're not playing it. He paused, his expression softening. Lily, I'm sorry, this is my fault. If I hadn't… Stop, Lily cut him off, her voice firm. This isn't your fault, it's hers. She grabbed his hand, her grip steady. We'll figure this out together. That night in Lily's Oak Cliff home, the tension followed them. Vince sat on the couch, his head in his hands, as Lily paced the small living room. The TV was off, but the gossip blog's words echoed in her mind. Flower girl's scheme. Then Vince stiffened, a flash hitting him, a memory clearer than before. Sarah, he muttered, his voice distant. I remember her, in a boardroom. She was yelling, saying I was ruining everything. He looked up, his eyes wide. Lily. I think she wanted something from me. Something big. Lily stopped pacing, her heart pounding. Like what? Money? Your company? I don't know, Vince said, frustration creeping into his voice. But it's connected to the accident, I can feel it. Another flash hit him. A car swerving, headlights blinding, Sarah's voice on a phone call. It's done. He gripped the couch, his knuckles white. She did this to me, the crash, it wasn't an accident. Lily's blood ran cold. You're saying she tried to kill you? The words felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But the fear in Vince's eyes was real. I don't know, he admitted. But we need to find out. He stood, determination replacing his fear. I'm not letting her hurt you, Lily. Not after everything you've done for me. Lily nodded, her mind racing. They needed help. Someone who could dig into Sarah's world without drawing attention. She thought of Marcus, an old friend from Oak Cliff, who worked at a coffee shop but had a past as a hacker. I know someone, she said. He's good with computers, knows how to find things people don't want found. If Sarah's hiding something, he'll dig it up. They met Marcus the next day at his coffee shop, a quiet spot near Oak Cliffs, Bishop Arts District. Marcus, with his dreadlocks and easy grin, listened as Lily explained everything. Vince's amnesia, Sarah's threats, the rumors. Sounds like a soap opera, he said, but his eyes were serious. I can check her. Digital trail, emails, transactions, anything that's not locked down tight. But it'll take time. And if she's as connected as you say, she'll have people watching. Do it, Vince said, his voice firm. Whatever it takes. Marcus nodded, pulling out his laptop. Over the next few hours, he showed them fragments he'd already found. A news article mentioning Sarah's promotion at Harrington Tech. A leaked email hinting at a power struggle. Then, a bombshell. A deleted police report about Vince's accident, suggesting tampering with his car's brakes. This is deep, Marcus said, his voice low. Someone wanted you gone, man. Vince's face hardened, more memories flickering. Sarah's voice, a contract he'd refused to sign, a meeting that ended in shouts. She wanted control, he said, the pieces falling into place. The company, everything I built, Lily grabbed his hand, her heart racing. "We're not letting her win," she said. "We'll get the proof and we'll stop her." The small coffee shop in Oak Cliff's Bishop Arts District hummed with the soft clatter of mugs and the murmur of early morning patrons. But for Lily Carter, Vince Harrington, and Marcus, the world had narrowed to the glowing screen of a laptop on their corner table. The air was thick with the scent of roasted beans and tension as Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling threads from the digital web Sarah Langley had woven. Lily sat close to Vince, her knee brushing his. Under the table, her heart a mix of determination and dread. The past week had been a whirlwind. Sarah's threats, the vicious rumors, the revelation of Vince's identity as a billionaire, and now the chilling suspicion that Sarah had orchestrated his accident. They were fighting a battle Lily had never imagined, one that could cost them everything. Marcus leaned back, his dreadlocks swaying as he pushed his laptop toward them. "All right, y'all. This is what we've got so far," he said, his voice low but steady. The screen showed a folder labeled Langley Dirt, filled with files he'd scraped from servers, cloud backups, and even a few less-than-legal sources. Emails, call logs, some encrypted stuff I'm still cracking. But the big ones, this. He clicked on a document, a police report marked as deleted but recovered from a backup server. It detailed Vince's accident. A black sedan, tampered brakes, a crash on a rain-slicked road just outside Dallas. The report had been buried, its author reassigned. "Someone didn't want this seen," Marcus said, his eyes flicking to Vince. "And I'm betting it's your ex." Vince's jaw tightened, his blue eyes fixed on the screen. More memories had been surfacing, fragmented but vivid. He saw Sarah in a boardroom, her face twisted with anger, demanding he sign over shares of Harrington Tech. He saw himself refusing, walking out into the rain, the screech of tires. "She wanted control," he said, his voice rough. "I remember a meeting. She said I was ruining the company, that I'd regret it." He looked at Lily, guilt shadowing his face. "I should have seen it coming. Now she's coming after you because of me." Lily shook her head, grabbing his hand. "This isn't your fault, Vince. She's the one playing dirty, not you." Her voice was firm, but inside, doubts gnawed at her. Sarah wasn't just a jealous ex. She was a predator, with resources Lily couldn't match. The rumors had already cost her customers. Regulars in Deep Ellum were avoiding her blanket, whispering about the gold digger florist. Last night she'd found graffiti on her bike. Thief. It stung, but what scared her more was the thought of losing Vince. Not to Sarah, but to his past. What if he remembered everything and chose his billionaire? Life over her? Marcus interrupted her thoughts, clicking another file. "Check this out," he said. It was an email thread, forged to look like it came from Lily's account, claiming she'd accessed Harrington Tech's servers and siphoned funds. The timestamps were recent, the language convincing. "She's building a case against you, Lily," Marcus said. "If this gets to the cops, it's bad, like jail time bad." Lily's stomach dropped. "That's not me," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't even know how to do that stuff." She looked at Vince, searching for doubt, but his eyes were fierce, unwavering. "I know it's not you," he said, squeezing her hand. "We're gonna prove it. Sarah's not winning this." His voice held a new edge, a glimpse of the man. He'd been before the alley, a leader, someone who didn't back down. It gave Lily strength, but also a pang of fear. That man belonged to a world she didn't know, one she might not fit into. They spent hours digging through Marcus's findings. Another file revealed a recorded phone call, intercepted from a burner phone Sarah had used. Her voice was unmistakable, cold and precise. "Make it look like an accident. He's in the way." The call was to an unknown number, but Marcus traced it to a mechanic with a rap sheet. "This is your smoking gun," he said, "but we need more to tie it to her directly. She's covered her tracks well." Lily's mind raced. They needed something undeniable, proof that would hold up in court, not just in a coffee shop. She thought of Sarah's envelope, the $50,000 she'd offered to make Lily disappear. "What about her financials?" Lily asked. "If she's paying people off, there's gotta be a trail, right?" Marcus grinned. "Smart girl, I'm already on it. Found some offshore accounts, transfers to shell companies. It's murky, but I'm close to cracking it." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "But we gotta move fast. She knows you're not backing down, Lily. That makes you a target." Vince's face darkened. "She's not touching her," he said, his voice low but fierce. He looked at Lily, his eyes softening. "I mean it, Lily. I'm not letting anything happen to you. You've done more for me than anyone, and I—" He trailed off, emotion choking his words. "I care about you. More than I can say." Lily's heart skipped, warmth spreading through her despite the chaos. She wanted to believe him, to hold onto this moment, but doubt crept in. "Vince," she said quietly, "what if you remember everything, your company, your life? It's not here selling flowers in Deep Ellum. What if you go back to that world and—" She couldn't finish, but the question hung between them. "What if you leave me?" He cupped her face, his touch gentle but firm. "I don't know who I was before," he said. "But I know who I am now, with you. This us, it's real. I'm not going anywhere, Lily, not unless you tell me to." His eyes held hers, and for a moment, the coffee shop, Marcus, the laptop, all of it faded. Lily nodded, tears pricking her eyes, and leaned into his touch. Marcus cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "Y'all are cute, but we've got a villain to take down." He pulled up another file, a video from a traffic camera near the crash site, showing a figure tampering with Vince's car hours before the accident. The figure was blurry, but Marcus enhanced it, revealing a man matching the mechanic's description. "This ties the crash to Sarah's call," he said. "We're close, but we need one more piece, something to nail her directly." They worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and adrenaline. Marcus found a final clue. A bank transfer from one of Sarah's shell companies to the mechanic, dated the day before the crash. It wasn't enough for a conviction, but combined with the call, the police report, and the forged emails, it painted a damning picture. "This is it," Marcus said, burning the files to a USB drive. "Take this to the cops and she's done." The next morning, Lily and Vince drove to the Dallas Police Department, the USB drive heavy in Lily's pocket. The station was a flurry of activity, officers barking orders, phones ringing, but they were directed to a detective named Alvarez, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes. Lily explained everything, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Vince filled in what he could, his memories still patchy but enough to corroborate the story. Alvarez listened, her expression unreadable, then took the USB drive. "This is serious," she said. "If what you're saying checks out, we're talking attempted murder, fraud, the works." As they left the station, Lily felt a mix of relief and fear. They'd done all they could, but Sarah was still out there, still powerful. Vince grabbed her hand, his grip firm. "You were amazing in there," he said. "I don't know how to thank you, Lily, for believing in me, for fighting, for me." She smiled, but it was tinged with worry. "We're not out of this yet," she said. "What if she comes after us again?" "She won't," Vince said, his voice fierce, "because we're not alone anymore. We've got Marcus, the cops, the truth, and we've got each other." He pulled her close, his arms a shield against the world, and for the first time in days, Lily let herself breathe. 2 days later, Alvarez called. Sarah had been arrested, caught trying to board a private jet to Mexico. The evidence was airtight, her shell companies unraveled. Her accomplices turned on her, and the mechanic confessed to tampering with Vince's car. The news spread fast, clearing Lily's name. The gossip blog issued a retraction, and customers returned to her blanket in Deep Ellum, some even apologizing. But for Lily, the victory was bittersweet. Vince was safe, Sarah was gone. But the question remained, what now? The morning sun rose over Deep Ellum, painting the murals in hues of gold and crimson, as Lily Carter pedaled her bike through the familiar streets of Dallas, Texas. Her wicker basket brimmed with fresh flowers, sunflowers, zinnias, and roses. There, petals catching the light like tiny flames. For the first time in weeks, her heart felt light, unburdened by the weight of Sarah Langley's lies or the fear of losing everything. Beside her walked Vince Harrington, no longer just the amnesiac, stranger she'd found in an alley, but a man who'd become her partner, her anchor, her hope. His borrowed flannel shirt was gone, replaced by a simple t-shirt and jeans. But the silver watch on his wrist, a relic of his billionaire past, glinted in the sunlight, a reminder of the worlds they'd bridged. The arrest of Sarah had been a turning point. The Dallas Police Department, armed with Marcus's evidence, had unraveled her web of deceit, forged emails, offshore accounts, and the mechanic's confession about the tampered brakes. Sarah's attempt to flee to Mexico had ended in handcuffs, and the headlines had shifted from vilifying Lily to praising her courage. The gossip blog retracted its story, and Deep Ellum's community rallied around her, customers returning to her blanket with apologies and extra tips. Rosa from the taco stand had even thrown a small party at her food truck, complete with free tacos and a playlist of Lily's favorite country songs. But for Lily, the real victory wasn't the cleared name or the crowded blanket. It was Vince, standing by her side, his blue eyes steady and warm. Vince had reclaimed his identity as the founder of Harrington Tech, but the man who'd emerged from the fog of amnesia was different. The memories that returned, boardrooms, contracts, the relentless pressure of his empire, felt like a stranger's life. He'd spent days at his downtown office, a sleek glass tower that loomed over Dallas, meeting with lawyers and board members to stabilize the company after Sarah's betrayal. But every evening, he returned to Lily's small home in Aurora, where the scent of lavender and the creak of the porch swing grounded him. He didn't belong in that tower anymore, not fully. His heart was here, in the vibrant chaos of Deep Ellum, with the woman who'd saved him in every way that mattered. One evening, as they sat on Lily's porch, the air thick with jasmine from a neighbor's yard, Vince turned to her, his expression serious. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice soft but certain, "about what comes next. Harrington Tech's mine. Again, but it doesn't feel right. Not the way it used to." He took her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "You showed me something better, Lily. A life that's real, that means something. I want to build that with you." Lily's heart raced, a mix of hope and fear. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She'd grown used to Vince, the Vince who tied clumsy ribbons around bouquets, who laughed at her bad jokes, who made her feel seen. But the billionaire Vince Harrington with his wealth and power was still a mystery. What if this life, her life, wasn't enough? "I'm saying I want to stay," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "Not just with you, but here, in Deep Ellum. I want to do something that matters, like you do with your flowers. I've got money, resources, but I don't want to just throw it around. I want to build something that lasts, something we can do together." He paused, a smile tugging at his lips. "What if we took this neighborhood, its art, its music, its people, and made it even better? A community project, something to give back." Lily's eyes widened, her mind spinning. She'd dreamed of a flower shop, maybe a small garden. But this was bigger, bolder. "Like what?" she asked, leaning forward, her curiosity sparking. "Parks? Art spaces?" "Exactly," Vince said, his voice alive with excitement. "Gardens where kids can play, spaces for artists to show their work, maybe a community center with free classes. Deep Ellum's got soul, but parts of it are struggling. Empty lots, run-down buildings. We could fix that, make it a place where everyone feels welcome." He squeezed her hand. "And I want you to lead it, Lily. You know this place, its people, you're the heart of it." Lily laughed, a mix of disbelief and thrill. "Me? Lead a project like that? Vince, I sell flowers. I don't know the first thing about whatever this is." "You know more than you think," he said, his voice firm. "You've built a life here, earned people's trust. That's what matters. I'll handle the money, the logistics. You bring the vision." His eyes softened and he added, "We're a team, Lily. We've already taken down Sarah. We can do this." The idea took root, growing with every conversation. Over the next weeks, they sketched out plans on Lily's battered notebook, once filled with flower sketches, now brimming with dreams. They walked Deep Ellum's streets, noting empty lots and faded storefronts, talking to locals like Rosa and Jamal, the street artist, about what the neighborhood needed. Vince used his connections to secure funding, not just from Harrington, tech, but from local businesses eager to invest in their home. Lily, hesitant at first, found her voice, pitching ideas at community meetings, her passion for Deep Ellum shining through. She proposed a garden on a vacant lot near Pecan Lodge, with benches, murals, and a stage for open mic nights. The crowd cheered, and Vince watched her, pride in his eyes. The project, dubbed the Deep Ellum Bloom, broke ground a month later. Lily stood at the lot, her boots sinking into the dirt, as Vince handed her a shovel for the ceremonial first. Ig. The crowd, locals, artists, even Detective Alvarez clapped as she turned the earth, her heart full. The garden would be more than flowers. It would be a symbol of what Deep Ellum could be. A place where everyone had a chance to grow. Vince joined her, his shovel breaking the ground beside hers, and their eyes met, a silent promise passing between them. As the weeks turned to months, the bloom took shape. Volunteers painted murals, kids planted seeds, and musicians played at fundraising events. Lily led with a quiet strength, her days split between the garden and her flower blanket, now set up near the project site. Vince scaled back his role at Harrington Tech, delegating to a trusted team, and spent most of his time in Deep Ellum hammering nails or hauling soil, his billionaire polish replaced by dirt-streaked jeans and a genuine smile. The neighborhood embraced him, not as a tycoon but as one of their own. One evening, as they sat in the nearly finished garden, fairy lights strung above and the scent of fresh earth in the air, Lily leaned against Vince, her head on his shoulder. "We did this," she said, her voice soft with wonder. "You and me, it's real." "It's more than real," Vince said, kissing her forehead. "It's ours." He pulled her closer, his voice dropping. "I love you, Lily. Not because you saved me, but because you make me want to be better every day." Lily's breath caught, her heart swelling. "I love you too," she whispered, the words new but true. They sat there, the stars above Deep Ellum brighter than ever, their worlds no longer separate but one, built on trust, love, and a garden that would bloom for years to come. The Deep Ellum bloom became a beacon, drawing visitors from across Dallas and beyond. Lily and Vince worked side by side, their partnership a testament to what love could achieve. They didn't need a mansion or a fortune. They had each other and a community that thrived because of them. Deep Ellum flourished, its soul intact, its future bright. What did you think of Lily and Vince's story? Drop a comment with your city and give it a rating from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one. See you in the next one.